So there was a couple of things I didn't like about the Insta360 GO 3. One of them was I didn't like the white, I wanted it to be black. And secondly, I wished it had 4K. Now Insta360 have launched the GO 3S, which is 4K and is now available in black. This video is not sponsored by Insta360, but I did reach out to them and say, could I have one to review? And they've sent me one. We're gonna unbox this, have a look at it, and then gonna take it out for a run. Now, I don't typically do unboxing videos. I find that market's a bit oversaturated. I kind of think, what are you going to see with me owning this box in a cool and suggestive way, in a cool way, that's going to be of interest to you? I don't watch unboxings anymore. I actually fast forward through them. That looks so much better in black. The form factor, everything else is basically the same as GO 3. It still has an internal battery, it still has internal memory, but that's because all of it's in this little camera pod here. So what do you expect? Okay, let's get this charged up. Let's get outside, go for a run. Welcome to Florida. 95 degrees Saturday afternoon. Not the smartest thing to be doing running right now. So I unboxed this camera some time ago, and I've taken it out and about quite a bit in the 6 weeks since. I've run with it, I've biked with it, I've hiked with it, I've traveled with it, I've gone to cities, I've gone out with the family, spent time at the beach and the pool, or with the GO 3S. I like the previous GO 3 a lot, much more than I expected. I just kept reaching for it long after I thought it was just going to sit on one of the shelves here as a prop. This video, I'm going to share with you what I found out while using GO 3S. It's absolutely not a rundown of the entire spec sheet. I'm not going to run through every single feature on it, but it does cover everything that I think you need to know if you're looking at this camera and you're somebody like me. So let's start with what's new. The processor in here has had a 50% upgrade in its performance, and that really supports the move to 4K 30 frames a second. It also gives it a high bit rate of 120 megabits a second, up from 80 megabits a second on GO 3. So firstly, let's look at the form factor of this camera. It's basically exactly the same. This is the GO 3, this is the GO 3S. There's very little to tell between them, really, and certainly the action pod itself, apart from the color, obviously, in this case, is there's no difference. There's a couple of differences I'll point out. Ignore this, I'll talk about that in a bit. That's a foam wind muff. Firstly, on the camera, there's differences on the two cameras. In fact, let's get these out of the way. Firstly, this is not actually the lens. This is actually the lens protector, which unscrews $10 for the GO 3. Not sure about the GO 3S, but gets you two spare ones. So the lens is always protected, and that's an easy screw-on thing. That is a different size and is also knurled on the edge on the GO 3S compared to the GO 3. The lens is slightly different as well. The lens is redesigned, so I'm expecting that to be larger purely for that reason. But there's something else I want to come onto on that in a sec. The other thing is that the GO 3 had the whole case is glossy, but that includes the sides of the camera, which meant if you were holding the camera, particularly in some sporting things where you might have a bit of sweat or moisture on your hands, it's very easy to lose it because it's slippery. Whereas they've gone for a knurled finish on the side of GO 3S. That might just be aesthetics, I don't know, but I much prefer it. Now, the other thing I want to just quickly show you is this larger lens protector actually helps with removing the camera too. If I want to remove the camera from the action pod, the camera is held in by magnets, but also there's a lock here. So if I just demonstrate, you push in that lock and then you have to actually grip the sides of the lens to pull the camera out. And it's a pretty strong magnet too, so you really got to give it a pull. I was often thinking that I was getting my fingers onto the edges of the lens here, or the lens protector, which meant I get fingerprints on the lens just before I started recording. Didn't like that, always had to be careful. Now this is so much larger, again, lock button, magnets, squeeze a lock button, that is so much easier to grip because of the fact that it doesn't, well, because it's so much larger and it's got this knurled thing on it too. So I don't worry about touching the lens and getting fingerprints on the lens before I start filming something with the Go 3S, which I did with Go 3. The camera itself is now waterproof down to 33 feet or 10 meters. That's double the depth that Go 3 could go to. The action pod, though, keep in mind, that's this piece, that's not waterproof. It is splash proof if the camera is attached to it, but it's best to regard it as either not waterproof at all, or if you're going to take it anywhere near water, just get the dive case for it. The camera is still super lightweight, and although it's slightly heavier than Go 3, it's now 1.39 ounces instead of 1.25 ounces, but let's not get too hung up on small amounts of weight. It still weighs a lot less than the Phoenix 7X watch that I have here on my wrist. There's quite a few features on Go 3S that are not on Go 3, and I'll show you what some of those are now. Firstly, there's two things on here. One is there is a level indicator now, which is that green bar across there. That's activated by the level, which is this button here, level indicator off, level indicator on. The other one, this is something different that I like. This is called tilt fix. This allows you to position the camera in the general orientation that you want, be it vertical or landscape, and then the software is going to correct any leveling issues up to about 10 degrees either way. So for example, I'll drop this on the pendant here. There, so I've got it in landscape. I haven't really bothered to line it up because I don't think I need to. Same if I want to go vertical, I can just drop it roughly on here. I can't even see it right now, so I don't even know if it is even slightly vertical. But anyway, the software will correct that. Now, outside of 10 degrees, it gets a bit too much, but generally, if you have it in the right rough direction, it should be okay. Something else I want to show you on here, if I come into the settings, there's a kid setting, which if you enable the kid mode, actually reduces some of the flashing lights, but also stops them pushing the buttons. So you can put this on your children, put it in kid mode, put it on your children, like on maybe the pendant or maybe the hat clip or something, let them run around, and actually they can't interfere with the camera at all. The other thing here is this one. This is super cool, and I'm just gonna get that out of the way. This is super cool, but I haven't used this yet. This is interval video, and this camera will take a short clip and then turn off again. And it will do that according to settings that you program into it. Or you can just pick one of the examples, like this one. You're cooking a ball game, or you got your kids on it, or running. Okay, so let's say I would do this with running. So now I'm going to have a look at this. And what this will do at the moment is this will take 15-second video clips every 5 minutes, and it will record it in 4K 30 frames a second. And I can either program that to work when the camera is in the action pod, like it is, or only when the camera is not in the action pod. So if I was going to do this, I'd have the camera on my hat clip, so I would say only when it's not in the action pod, and then start task. All I have to do now is turn it off, and then put it on me when I start running, and it will keep turning on, taking a short clip, and turning off again. I think the real advantage of this is it's kind of a set and forget. You don't have to worry about doing anything at all. You just set it up. The battery will last a lot longer because it's just going to turn on, take that clip, turn off again. Turn on, take a clip, turn off again. So you could be doing this for a really extended period of time. I mean, you get 140 minutes claimed, over 2 hours out of this camera when it's in the action pod. I'm getting about 30 minutes of battery life from the camera itself, which is less than I was getting with my older Go 3. This was like 38, 39 minutes. This one I'm getting about 30 minutes, maybe 32. There is a stated figure, which I'll put on the screen, for what Insta360 say, but their data is based on recording in 1080p. I always record everything in 4K 30. Both the camera and the action pod have now had Apple Find My added. I wasn't expecting that. I think that's really cool. If you're an iPhone user, like I am, this is really, really useful. You will know that you can drop AirTags to just about anything, but for a small camera, it's not really practical. This has the same functionality built in as an AirTag. So if you lose either the camera or the action pod, you can play a sound on them to help track them down, or you can see their last known location on your iPhone. Here's a fun fact. The Go 3 and the Go 3S action pod and camera are fully interchangeable. I can take the Go 3S camera, drop it in the Go 3 action pod. The menu system here is from the Go 3S. I've got everything from the Go 3S, even though this is in the original Go 3 action pod. So I think that's really cool. I don't know why, but I do. It does mean, though, that if you have got a Go 3 and you want to keep your Go 3 and you buy a Go 3S, you can travel with this kit. And if you travel with that kit, with a Go 3 camera, a Go 3S camera, and one action pod, you're traveling super light and you can get two different fields of view at exactly the same time. The field of view is reported to be more limited than it was on Go 3, and that's perhaps as a result of the lens change and the move to 4K. I have to say though, I haven't fussed too much about it and I haven't really noticed it. I'm not really noticing any change in the microphone performance from Go 3 to Go 3S. Have a listen to this clip. This is with the wind reduction filter turned on. If I look red, it's not because I was drinking wine all night, it's because I was born in England, I'm quite pale, and I every so often mess up my sunscreen routine. And it looks like I did that yesterday. I was in a shelter, and even on the beach, and even though I put on sunscreen, I clearly didn't do it well enough, so I look a bit red today. Now, I'm going to save you the pain of listening to any more of that. I'm still picking up a lot of wind noise. Now, it didn't feel that windy on that beach. Certainly there was some wind, but it didn't feel that windy. That's actually the new wind filter that Insta360 have launched for Go 3 and Go 3S. It's a sticky mount, so I haven't put it on my Go 3S, but I have stuck it on Go 3 just to test it out. Now, the main thing here is there's a little bit of wind. There is wind, but I really wouldn't expect it to be interfering with the microphone. But last time I recorded something like this in this sort of wind, there was a lot of noise. The clips that I took with wind reduction in light wind are only usable because I'm going to demonstrate it in this video. Otherwise they would be unusable. I'm not seeing any significant changes in the stabilization of Go 3S versus Go 3. Having said that, I'm very happy with the stabilization of Go 3 anyway. I only ever use the stabilization in camera on these two cameras. It's plenty good enough for what I'm doing, which is either hiking, cycling, or running. If I wanted more stabilization, I can increase the in-camera stabilization level, but that generally leads to a much more significant crop in the field of view. That gives the camera more pixels to play with, or the software more pixels to play with when leveling the footage. You can also go further than that and shoot in free frame mode, which allows you to capture more of what comes off the sensor. And then you effectively reframe it in post-production and apply flow state stabilization. You can do that. I don't. I generally don't shoot vertical, and I'm happy with the stabilization get in camera anyway, so I don't shoot in free frame at all. The Go 3S doesn't really have any direct competition. I mean, there's plenty of action cameras available, but have you ever stuck a full-size action camera on your hat or your head or on a chest mount? I've done it. You definitely know it's there. It's large and heavy, and it's not easy to forget that you got it there. Now, when I run with it, and sometimes when vlogging, I prefer to take just the camera. The Action Pod still uses the same magnetic clip mount system as the Go 3, which is very quick and easy to use. Take the Go 3 camera, put it on the chest mount, or the chest pendant, or your hat, or on a selfie pole. It's so light and small, you don't notice it. And more importantly, I think, neither will anybody else. It's so small and discreet. So I did a few comparisons in different light. Let's just take a look at some of those now. The real test of how good a video camera is when it's not in bright, sunny weather, like this. Any camera can look good when the sun's shining on a beach with a beautiful blue sky. Now these are sorts of conditions that most camera reviews, particularly action cameras and 360 cameras, will be in. Beautiful sunshine, lovely day. Bit of wave noise right now. But in my mind, it's an unfair comparison. Frankly, any camera is going to look fabulous in conditions like this. But you give it some murky conditions like rain, cloud and stuff, and you'll start to see a big difference between the different camera qualities. It's not sunny every day. Sometimes it rains. When it rains, you might just want to take some video. Stepping up to 4K is a great move, but when it comes to image quality, the size of the sensor also has a very big impact on image quality, particularly when the light is not perfect. In order for that camera to be so small, you've got to have a small sensor. There's no getting around it. The Go 3S has a smaller sensor than most full-size action cameras, but that's a compromise in order to make the Go 3 what it is, an incredibly tiny little camera that packs incredible processing power and delivers movie clips you otherwise wouldn't be able to achieve. So should you buy it? Well, if you're looking at the Go 3S to buy as your one and only action camera or travel camera, I do think it's a great choice because it is capable of doing so many different things in one little package. If I had to take one camera for video only on a trip or travels other than my phone, it would be Go 3S. If you want an all-round travel camera that covers absolutely every possibility except for 360 footage, I think this is the camera to get. Now that it has 4K, I'm no longer compromising on resolution as I was with the original Go 3. If you already have a Go 3 and you're thinking you should upgrade, I think you should, but only really because of that bump in resolution to 4K. Everything else is a nice to have, but isn't really a good enough reason to justify changing. Generally, this for me is a small video camera, not photo camera. But if this is the only camera you're going to take on your travels, then the photo quality of this is pretty good. If you've got multiple cameras already and you're looking at the Go 3S, have a think about what you're going to use it for. Now, I fall into this category. I have way too many cameras these days, and that actually makes it more difficult to decide what to take on a trip or a day out. There's such a choice. Actually, it gets quite stressful. The Go 3S, though, has become an easy choice for those days when I just want to capture high quality footage without taking bags and bags of gear. I just need to take one thing, and then I pick up the Go 3S, a mini selfie stick, the pivot stand, the easy clip, this pendant. It all fits in one hand and I'm good to go. So that's it. That's it for Go 3S from Insta360. My name is Julian. If I can run with it, bike with it, hike with it, or film with it, I will make videos and put them here on YouTube. If that's of interest to you, please do consider subscribing to the channel. As always, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.